Hey there. There's a difference between having the experience and knowing how to communicate it in a way that makes someone believe you're the clear choice. If you've been making it to the final rounds of interviews or making it pretty far in the process, but not actually landing the offer, that could be the gap. You've already shown you can play, but by the end, the question becomes, can they trust you to finish the game when the clock is winding down? Hi, welcome back to Locker Talk. I'm Sam, and every week we break down plays that help you build clarity, make bold career moves, and stop sitting on the sidelines. And today we're talking about one of the most frustrating things I hear from mid-career professionals. You keep getting close to the finish line, but never crossing it. And I totally get it. That rejection seems to sting more than being cut early in the process. You leave interviews thinking you clicked, you know you're qualified, you've shown you can do the work, and then you get the call, you were great, but we went with another candidate. I don't know how many people I've had lately come to me and say that they've experienced this exact thing. And part of it is because the market right now is really, really tough. And so by the time you're in those last rounds, we're talking highly qualified, highly competitive environments. And sometimes it comes down to just a few little things that become the difference between someone else and you getting the offer. And if that's happened to you, stick with me. We're going to talk about what's really going on in those final rounds, why it's not about your skills, and the specific plays you can run to start turning those almosts into offers. So, right, let's talk about if you're in that situation, you get that turned down, maybe that's happened once or twice, and you really start to go through this spiral of like, maybe I'm not good at interviewing, maybe I'm not qualified after all, maybe something's missing, right? You start to get all of this self-doubt. And I want you to normalize it. If you felt that way, you're not alone. I've heard this exact same frustration from so many professionals recently. And I want to tell you right now, these doubts aren't the truth. They aren't related to your value. The reality is if you're getting to the final round, heck, if you're even getting to interviews at all at this point, the company has already vetted you and knows that you're highly qualified. I mean, I've seen really, really impressive resumes, really, really impressive candidates tell me that this has happened to them. And so if you're making it that far, take that for the signal that it is. You are qualified. You are representing yourself pretty well when it comes down to it. And so the question is, the question at the end of the interview cycles doesn't become, can you do the job? Because they've already decided, of course, you could do the job. It comes down to something else. And I like to use a sports analogy around a championship game, right? When you're in a championship, everybody on that field can play. And not only can they can play really, really well, right? They are champion level material. That's why they're there. But when it comes down to winning, it isn't just about skill, right? It's not that they can make the plays, it's not that they can score, it's not that they can do their job. It really comes down to who can get the ball across the finish line. Who can we trust to really make the plays, make the things happen when the clock is winding down, right? So break this down into, let's break this down into like what going through a hiring manager's mind in this final phases, right? Really comes down to trust and composure, decision making under pressure, values and cultural alignment. That's where that really comes into play. I had some back and forth on LinkedIn last week about where does that come in, right? Because I had done a post around you really need to lead with value first, right? Lead from the perspective of the hiring manager. But values and cultural alignment absolutely come down. And it's in this final round, right? They're really assessing, can you fit the team? And if you're in a leadership role, or even if you're just really experienced, like most mid-career professionals are, it's about your ability to raise the level of the team overall. If they add you to the team, does the entire team get better? Um, and so they're not about competence, right? Those final rounds aren't about can you do the job? Do I need to prove it, right? At this point, you need to really think differently. It's about their confidence in your ability to get them what they need, solve their problems in a way that's deeper and much more close to the actual issues they're having, the actual team that they're working on, right? Can they picture you as part of that? Can they picture you as part of the solution? Okay, so if that's the game, then how do you win? So there are four plays you need to run. One is depth over breadth, right? We've given them lots of information on your resume. We've given them lots of information in interviews to this point, but this is where you really dive deep, right? This is talking about how you think, how you make decisions, what you learned along the way. So in these final rounds, they want insight into how you're going to show up and how your thought process really works. So when you're giving an example, when you're giving a story, go deep with it. Number two is owning your weak spots. A lot of times towards the end, they're gonna ask you questions about where you've struggled, where things have been difficult, and you want to show up with humility and growth, right? Really have a very solid story about somewhere where you stumbled and what you would do differently now. And that builds a lot more trust than you trying to spin your strengths or your weaknesses into strengths, like Michael Scott would say, right? This is really about owning it, right? Owning that we're all human and we're not perfect, but owning the fact that, you worked really hard and here's how you show up differently. Because you also want to display that you are capable of growth so that when new, weak spots come in, especially when you're coming into a new organization, a new team, a new company, you're going to have some weak spots, right? You're going to have blind spots that you just don't know about. And they want to know that there's very little risk in you if those things come up because you can be humble and grow from that place, right? So own them and talk about how you grow. Three is handle curveball questions with composure. This is the round a lot of times where they throw something crazy at you, right? Like how many windows are in New York City? Like those types of questions. There are a few that I used to ask people back in the day because what you're looking for and what I was looking for was how do you think, right? Even when the answer, there might be a right answer, there might not be a right answer, but we're looking for how your brain works, how your process works under pressure, right? You're in the final round of an interview. These are usually high stakes, right? You want the job, they want you to be a good fit for the job. And so this is you really showing up with how composed you are and how you're thinking in that pressure cooker type of a situation. And the fourth thing, and this is what a lot of people miss, right? And we miss this because of nerves, but it's showing authentic enthusiasm for not just the job, but for the mission, the people, the impact you want to make, right? At this point, you should have evaluated this company really deeply because you're at the point where you're making final decisions on is this somewhere you want to work or is it not? And so if you don't have something you're genuinely excited about, one, you should be thinking about that. But two, you should be digging a little bit deeper, right? You should be referencing back to conversations, to people by name that you've had to this point, right? You should be really, really making them feel like you want this job. You want to be here specifically, right? You don't want to be anywhere. You want to be here at this company, at this team for specific reasons. And so show up with that level of enthusiasm. Show up with specifics that you're really excited about because that also makes you a less risky candidate, right? A less risky long-term candidate. You're not going to show up and then disappear in a year. You're going to show up and the time that they invest in you is worth it because you're excited to be here for a longer haul. So that enthusiasm, don't lose sight of it when we're in these, final round, high pressure championship type situations. So this week, if you are preparing for interviews, maybe you have some coming up, but what I want you to do is to pick 3 or 4 key stories from your career and run them through this structure, right? Think about the situation. Think about key decisions that you had to make. Think about the actions that you took, the results of those actions and those decisions, and then do a little reflection, right? This is sort of the STAR framework with the extra R that I love, but with decision replaced for task, right? Because we're talking about leadership skills. We're talking about, you leading people in a direction. If you're mid-career, you're making decisions that matter. And so own a few of those and prepare some stories around there. And if you need some help or want a little bit of a framework, I do have a star story framework that I'll happily send you. Just shoot me an email or a DM and I will slide that right on over to you. It's got a nice little workshop. But the reflection here is really what's key, right? Taking time to prepare, to really think about what those stories look like. Because preparing something that hits at a emotional level for somebody else that really helps somebody see that you can grow, you can think, you can reflect backwards and bring that forwards and bring that into the future is something that managers, hiring managers are really looking for. And it also helps make you a safe bet when the pressure is really on, because this last round is really about risk at the end of the day. Who's less risky between the couple of candidates that are left? So, recap, if you are making it to the finals, you are already good enough. You have shown that you can do the job. Now it's about sharpening that story so that they see that you're the one to finish strong. You're the one that should cross over that finish line. And so if you want a full breakdown of the plays, how to use them in your interviews, you can check out this week's play-by-play blog, which is getting to the last round, but not the offer. Here's the real problem. The link is in the show notes. And if you're ready to really accelerate, I'm going to be launching my Career Story Accelerator, which is a workshop series, because I really think that is such a great way to engage, to sit down. We do a little bit of learning, a little bit of live workshopping. We're really working through things real time. And you can listen to how other people are piecing their stories together, how you can piece your story together. This is great if you are trying to get ahead of comp cycle, right? Coming up in the new year, to start to have conversations with your boss. How do you talk about your work week over week? How do you talk about your accomplishments in a way that sets you up for being somebody they really should consider throwing extra compensation, promotions, progressions, all that good stuff your way? Or if you're looking to land a new job, right? In interviews, obviously, but also how you show up on paper and LinkedIn, all that sort of good stuff. So if this sounds like something you'd like to do, I've got the Career Story Accelerator kicking off in mid-October that will finish up before we hit the holidays in the US. That way you've got a really nice full arsenal of stories and information that you can use before you head into the new year. So we are not here to almost win, my friends. We are here to finish out strong. And so, as always, I want you to put down the popcorn and get in the game.